Welcome to the Business Advisor Hot Seat. I'm George Sandman, founder and CEO. And in the hot seat every week are senior pros like you sharing their tips, tricks, and techniques for delivering client wins. So we're going to cover a lot of the methodology and process that's it's in my book, The Growth Driving Advisor. So if learning how to be better at doing what you do, learning what others are doing is important to you, listen up, strap in, and let's go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and this is Growth Drive's Business Advisor Hot Seat. And today, I'm excited to have a conversation with Jacob Andra from Talbot West. And Jacob and I just met. Jacob's going to be leading a panel discussion at the AM and AA conference this July in Chicago. And I've been invited to be on that panel. It's about artificial intelligence, large language models, etc. So, Jacob, please, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I'm really grateful for you having the time to be here. Thank you. And then we'll pick up the conversation from there.
Thanks for having me, George. Yeah, so I'm the founder of Talbot West. We are a solutions provider for the middle market. We work a lot in the mergers and acquisitions space, I think, which is why I was invited on this AI in M&A podcast in Chicago that you referenced. Glad to have you on the panel, by the way. I think you're going to bring a valuable insight there. But yeah, Talbot West, we do a few different things in the mergers and acquisitions space. We work with professional service providers to help them be more efficient, as well as provide value-add services to their clients to kind of highlight or accentuate what they're already offering. We also work directly with both the buy side and sell side. So, for example, on the sell side, if a business owner is looking to sell in, say, 18 months or so, we can audit their business processes, create a comprehensive roadmap, and highlight some easy wins, low-hanging fruit, where some AI, machine learning, automation type of solutions can come in and increase EBITDA and also expand their multiple so they can get a bigger exit. That can work really well with the right types of use cases. And in most middle market companies of any scale, we can usually find those use cases.
That's awesome. And that's why from our very first conversation, we started, you and I are living in sort of parallel universes. So, that's awesome. And, AI, there's a lot of buzz around it. I think it's also maybe, I'd love your thoughts. Profoundly misunderstood, both misunderstood as to what it can do now, what it'll be able to do in the medium and long term, and what's called long term, 3 years. This is technology after all. So I love the fact that you're using it to prepare a business for due diligence. I mean, that's essentially what our technology does, which is the point in our conversation last week when I was like, holy cow, we should get together and have you on the podcast. So, but yeah, how do you view middle market implementation of AI? Like, what are people going to be able to do, or what do you think the biggest use cases are in the near term for the next year or so?
Maybe we should start with kind of the slightly mid to longer term view to set the stage, and then we can narrow it into that, because I think it needs to be framed in more of a long-term view, because honestly, what I see is a lot of companies are viewing it very myopically as, what quick gains can they get? And I think they're missing the forest for the trees. And so we've developed a thesis, and I shared this when you and I had our discussion, and I think it really resonated with you, and you and I see this very much the same. But it's our 5-year thesis, and it essentially says that in 2030, any business of scale that stays competitive is going to be AI enabled end to end, not in these siloed ways that we're seeing today, but literally every aspect of the organization will be integrated with every other aspect. So data will flow seamlessly. It'll proactively surface these correlations and insights, and it will find these efficiencies that we can barely imagine today. So it's difficult to imagine a totally integrated business because we're so used to this disjointed paradigm we have today. But it's much like your body has a central nervous system that coordinates, your brain is the command center. It coordinates all the different processes that need to cooperate with each other. I mean, even walking is an incredibly complicated process that
Yes.
involves a lot of separate functions, and your brain coordinates it all. And imagine if each part of your body functioned independently of the others, and there was no central coordinator, and none of it really coordinated with each other. That would not be a very good experience, and that's what we have today in business. And so we're going to, over the next 5 years, it's going to happen fairly rapidly. We're going to go from disjointed to completely integrated and coordinated organizations. That's going to happen in about 5 years. The reason I'm so sure of that is because it'll be possible. And secondly, because it'll convey such an incredible competitive advantage. It'll drive businesses to do that or essentially go extinct. They just won't be able to compete. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, go ahead.
no, go
Sorry.
ahead. That's the larger frame, but go ahead, and then we can transition to the shorter view.
Well, it's interesting. That was precisely, as you said, that was the point in our conversation when I said, holy cow, Jacob, you're the first person who I've heard enunciate our view of where technology will enable competitive advantages. And real briefly, I mean, we are organized around the concept of strategic capacity. Strategic capacity is a business's ability to predictably and sustainably grow free cash flow. Terrific. What are the processes, the procedures, the people, et cetera, that have to all be lined up and working seamlessly together inside the enterprise? And in our world, that is clarity, right? We have the clarity, strategic capacity, and business value analysis, which makes profit and value growth actionable. Sorry for the infomercial. Now we are literally building AI into. Her name is Claire. I'm talking about it publicly. We're building Claire as an AI agent that will live, if you will, inside of Clarity. And our stated vision is for Clarity, for Claire, to be able to call on data from ERP, financial reporting systems, CRMs, et cetera, and be able to pull that data in, and a lot of other cool stuff, but be able to pull that data in and put it into the context of operational best practices, KPIs, and more. And I'm not giving it even an ounce of justice, but yeah, that's the point at which last week I'm like, man, imagine a future. And something you said about myopic, I'll underscore it and then turn the mic back over to you. A lot of people think because they're using Perplexity or because they're using chat for very for important research, they think they're incorporating AI, and but they are, but they're going. That's a very shallow understanding. No judgment there, but that's not a very deep application for AI.
Absolutely. And I have a client that the number one thing they need help with right now is deploying chat GPT teams across their organization and training their people on how to use that. And we certainly can do that. That's not our biggest differentiator, right? There are plenty of consultancies out there that can do that. And so what I was telling the business owner is absolutely, we can start with that. You're going to get a lot of efficiency out of that. And that's touching all these peripheral endpoint processes, where you can upload a document, hopefully without too much sensitive information in it, but you can upload a document and have it summarize or generate a series of reports or whatever you need. So these kind of endpoint peripheral workflows and processes. But if you want to really create this organizational intelligence we're talking about, that is going deep into the wiring of the company itself and remaking that from the ground up, which is a huge undertaking. We don't recommend trying to do that all at once. We recommend a stepwise approach.
Yeah.
You've got to architect it out, and every step has to lead toward this end goal, but taking it a step at a time. And this is what I talked to him about. He's very on board with this. So like you say, ChatGPT, Perplexity, these are all super useful tools that can speed up a lot of workflows, but they're very peripheral in terms of the organizational kind of the very being of the organization, really those deep processes that are going to either make or break this kind of organizational intelligence we're talking about.
Heck yes. Heck yes. How are you seeing people implementing it? How are you seeing your clients implementing AI today?
Yeah, there are lots of different places to start with it. So you can start in something like a knowledge management system. This is a very good, a company that doesn't have this, this is a great starting point, which is essentially standardize all your internal SOPs and tribal knowledge in a series of documents, a document repository where everything's very well documented, compliance, governance, SOPs, anything and everything that relates to how the company needs to run and what a person would need to know to do the various roles within the company, and then train an AI on that so it can be queried by anyone in the company. They can get instant answers and have a single source of truth. And you can build in some hallucination proof measures there, some verifications, so you can, avoid that problem that LLMs can hallucinate. That's a great starting point.
It is.
We can also launch in on different types of points. Maybe data entry and data analysis is the low-hanging fruit, where people are spending so much time moving data between one system and another, and with some intelligent middleware, you can cut hundreds of hours out, and accuracy and efficiency can go up, customer retention can go up because now they're not waiting on turnaround as long. Maybe it's some predictive analytics, maybe it's some extracting insights from data so you can actually have some intelligence to know what you need to know about the internal workings, KPIs of the company. Maybe there's a lot of blind spots, and you can illuminate those and find out what's going on within the company. I mean, there are a lot of entry points, and usually we like to start with a deep dive to kind of highlight what the lowest hanging fruit is, as well as architecting out what that end state of total organizational intelligence would look like, very specific to a given company, and then what those steps are to get there and what the easy wins are to get started right off the bat.
Absolutely. I love that. And Jacob, you mentioned hallucinations, and let's get into that opens the door to confidence, right? How do we help, in my world, advisors, professionals, business senior leaders have a high degree of confidence that what they're getting out of the machine is good information, is good, are there good recommendations, good research? What does it look like when you do when you code or when you create systems that'll point out hallucinations?
Yeah, that's a great point. So first we should talk about how hallucinations are really confined to the domain of generative AI. And the strength of generative AI is it's quite creative, of thinking outside the box, as opposed to some of the more deterministic AI systems. And that's also its Achilles heel. Its creativity can cause it to hallucinate. It's part and parcel. So depending on the application, we may not even deploy generative AI, or we may deploy generative AI in concert with some more deterministic types of AI. For computational models, you may not want to have generative AI even touch your data. If you have structured data and you want to run some computations, things like that on it, now maybe some predictive analytics, some things like that, you may not want to have generative AI touch it, in which case the issue of hallucination isn't really going to come into play as much. But let's just say now to the point of using generative AI and how to kind of inoculate yourself from that tendency to hallucinate. There are a couple easy ways you can reduce the likelihood or highlight those hallucinations when they do occur. And so one is, let's just say, back to the example of the knowledge management system, where you have all of your institutional knowledge standardized. You have an AI trained on that. Anyone can get its instant answers to any query. You can also have it show the source material. So it both gives a concise answer. Here's the answer to your question about vacation policy, let's just say. And here in the side panel are the documents from which it's sourcing that answer, showing you, the exact PDFs that it's drawing this answer from, so you can reference for yourself. That's an easy one. For very complex workflows involving generative AI, you can build in these human in the loop touch points, where within the workflow, it is, pause, wait for a human expert to verify this part of the output. Once they give the verification, proceed with the rest of the workflow. So checkpoints where humans can check the work, verify that it's accurate. For complex M&A type transactions, you can have generative AI do 80-90% of the workflow with a human expert putting the final polish and verifying all facts. So human oversight is obviously a great one. And then in these very complex ensembles, let's say a super complex workflow, we can actually build ensemble solutions where we have antagonistic large language models. Their job is to actually probe each other for weakness, double check the output, intentionally find hallucinations or flaws and surface those. And so by building kind of antagonistic systems to verify and double check each other, that's a great way to dramatically decrease the incidence of hallucination.
I love that. And it's interesting. I think we're all in the habit of saying, that these models will generate a great first draft, but you've got to go read it. And you're kind of underscoring that point. And for those of you in our audience, think about the incredible time efficiency. Would you rather write a document and then proofread it carefully, or would you rather proofread it carefully, right? And imagine the use of time that you will have. AI is not, there's a lot of, it's going to take people's jobs. And I've had people, I just got back from a conference, had a gentleman stand on my booth and tell me that AI could do everything that our software can do, which is incorrect. And I pointed that out to him, and he's on the books for a demo. He runs technology for a large accounting firm. There's a tremendous amount of good that comes from the type of work that you and I are talking about here. Jacob, let's get into, if it's okay with you, let's get into how our common experiences, not you and I, but our experience as professionals, more broadly as a community, it actually limits our imagination when it comes to using these AI generally. Do you see that play out when you sit down with a client?
Certainly people's imagination is circumscribed by what they know. Absolutely. Yeah. And that they tend to bring that to the table. That sort of limits what they see as possible, and we're just humans, right? We are used to the paradigm that we are trained in, and it's very hard for us to get our head around a new paradigm. But as we know, paradigm shifts happen throughout human history again and again and again. If anything, it's the one constant is that paradigms don't stay static. So I think the more we can get used to rapidly catching up to whatever that shift is and getting on board with it, we'll be better off.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's interesting as I'm speaking selfishly, as we're designing the capabilities that Claire will have. You basically imagine putting a kid through school and sports and all the things we do with a human that we want to end up. We hope will end up a certain way. It's the same. It's the same with AI, with designing AI, and frankly, kind of riffing on that. You never know how your kid is going to turn out. It is the same with building AI. We won't know until we get there, but we have, a lot of architecture. What is super fun is to literally write down all the ideas, just the realm of the possible, no matter what could we do, right? And then start narrowing it down. It's something we do in advisory, the could, should, must, will. And we're in the middle of could, should, must. And we're definitely in the must. The could document is exhaustive and was super fun to write. Just because it's an idea doesn't mean it's a good one, though. This episode is brought to you by the Growth Drive Summit. Our theme this year is building a profitable advisory business. Join us in Charleston, South Carolina, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. Expand your network, learn new skills, and generally have a good time. This is a top-rated event. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you. Okay, Jacob, after a little technical headwind there, so you've now changed locations. Thanks, man. I appreciate your understanding, and we'll pick up the conversation. So, we were talking about how imagination, whatever you can imagine, AI will, in all likelihood, be able to do within the realm of the reasonable, right? But and that we apply a process called could, should, must, will, which is what we're applying to our own AI development, and it's really fun, right? And on the could sheet are all sorts of wild ideas. The AI could order you a pizza if you're working late. It can do all of that. And then what what must it do? And what are your clients, what are you experiencing? Just taking those comments and putting them in a bag. What do you experience in the what could this possibly do for clients, and maybe specifically in the M&A or other advisory space?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are, solutions that transcend industry boundaries and they're useful across industries. And then there are obviously a lot of solutions that are very specific to a given industry. So pretty much any labor intensive workflow you can imagine can be largely automated with AI.
Yeah.
The management of knowledge, the access of knowledge, the generation of knowledge, of documentation, those are all very common types of things across industries. You can get into more, I would say, technical type solutions that get, even, more advanced technical capabilities involved, like supply chain logistics management, prediction, uh,
Prediction. Yes.
ingesting a wide range of diverse data sources and then correlating them to create a common operational picture. This is something Amazon has invested heavily in, but this capability is available to any organization that has the scale and budget to spin this up. You can ingest all of these different data sources and then find correlations between them and create these kind of dashboards showing you what's actually going on in real time. Those data sources can be anything from your own internal private data to open source satellite data streams, social media feeds, running predictive analytics, or even like sentiment analysis on social media feeds to find emerging, trends, and then correlating those with other data sources. I mean, there are literally like so many different things you can do in that aspect, and the list goes on and on. I mean, we could talk for hours just about
Yeah.
the diversity of uses to which you can put artificial intelligence, machine learning, generative AI, non-generative AI, these sorts of things.
Yeah, and something that a lot of people don't, got so many comments. One, you just hit on something that I think I want the whole audience to understand. A certain capability that is delivered through let's just say technology, may be relying on several different AI engines, generative, non-generative, custom, something that is completely custom for a specific task. It is a robot that does one thing. What we're already doing, and we have in our community, people are already doing, using Claire, who until recently was known as the Growth Drive GPT, but it's an open AI GPT, powered GPT, and Claire can take two plans. Um, Imagine you have so in our world, an exit plan and a strategic growth plan, or a strategic capacity analysis, and put the two together, and then use a trained model to generate a mashup, right? To generate a very powerful document that says, okay, well, you want to transfer this business to your senior leadership team in 5 years, and you're going to be the bank. And here are the following recommendations. And then we can get into and we already are generating plans using AI, which is super cool. Yeah.
That's a great use case.
Right. Yeah, there's so much. Again, if you can imagine it, AI either can or will be able to do it. Yeah. What as you're working, let's focus on M&A, since that's where you and I are going to meet face to face, which I'm really looking forward to. What do you think what do you think currently, or predict, one of the leading use cases for AI in these deals, in the deal space, is going to be?
Yeah, so there are two angles to talk about, actually three angles to talk about that from. As I indicated earlier, so there's the sell side, how businesses can be more sale ready and get a much higher valuation and exit
Yes.
by integrating AI machine learning technologies. So that's number one. Number two is on the buy side, the post kind of on the due diligence front and on the post acquisition merging of two organizations. There's a lot that AI can do there. So that's the sell side and the buy side. But then from the professional services ecosystem side, all of the professional services that touch an M&A transaction have extremely heavy, like manual workflows that AI
Yes.
can automate tremendous amounts. So you want to talk about an M&A law firm, an investment bank, an accounting firm doing a quality of earnings report, all of the different services that touch it, each of them internally can use AI to automate tremendous amounts of the workflow. And then what I actually see the future is what about the overlap or the kind of entire AI life cycle? So for example, you can look internally, what can an investment bank to automate their part of the M&A life cycle? What can a law firm do to automate their part? But then you could actually imagine some kind of an ecosystem that automates across the services so that the handoff and the data flowing between the services essentially shortens that entire process tremendously by kind of an economy of scale, so that when an accounting firm comes in to do a quality of earnings report, they actually are tapping into the same informational ecosystem in which the investment bank tapped in and did their sim and all of that, so that data is now flowing across
Yeah.
professional services to create much greater levels of efficiency.
Yeah.
So a lot of angles you can look at this from, but it's a fascinating ecosystem.
Yeah. I completely agree. And while we are not, I mean, we work with a lot of investment bankers, private equity, some private equity operators increasingly. Uh, it's fascinating. You know, obviously, accounting firms, wealth advisors. If you imagine imagine if each of those pros could submit 1, 2, 5 reports, sets of data, et cetera, and ask a um, well-designed AI agent to not only digest what's in the stack and in rapidly, but then to start reaching out into the net and pulling in pulling in all sorts of other fun stuff. I'll leave it at that. We end up with a much more cohesive, coordinated team where, in all likelihood, and here's the one thing: human error. Right? We are all human. I forget things. You know, we all forget things. Imagine if you had a machine. If Claire was tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Hey, George, man, that's great, but you forgot blank."
Mm-hmm.
Your the numbers you're crunching are from 2 years ago. That whatever the error is, or your prediction models, your prediction, and that's what we're building in. Right, the guys are coding it right now. Your prediction model, it has a low likelihood of success because you are predicting something that is beyond the capability, the proven performance of businesses, and that we're building that right now to be able to say, "Hey, man, love you. You know, these growth projections are great. They're just not possible. They're not
Mm-hmm.
possible due to your future cash flows. They're not possible because they're simply overly aggressive in terms of growth, et cetera." Um, sorry, man, I get fired up and I just get on a tear. So but
No, we're speaking the same language here.
yeah, yeah, it's funny. You know, we have a couple more minutes together, and Jacob, what what have I not asked? You know, I know and we could probably sit and talk for the rest of the afternoon. What do you think is the number one thing that advisors, business advisors, investment bankers, et cetera, should have in mind, be wary of, consider, dream about when it comes to AI over the moderate term?
Yeah, so this is going to sound incredibly self-serving, but it doesn't make it any less true. They need to be aware of the extent of their knowledge about AI and also be aware of all of the things they don't know
Mm-hmm.
and have the right resources in hand to know who to reach out to for their clients and their projects, because AI is going to be absolutely relevant, and it's going to be only more and more so to the entire M&A ecosystem and business in general. And so advisors should have those resources lined up that can uh, bring the right inputs, the right insight, the right architectures and solutions putting the client first. I'm wary of a lot of SaaS providers because they're a solution in search of a problem, and they try to kind of shoehorn in every business use case as a fit for their kind of fixed set of capabilities. And so I think the need for quality advisors that are sort of tech agnostic and can come in and really from a business first perspective, putting the needs of the business first and foremost, bring that technical advice.
I love that. Okay, because if I understood you correctly, you're saying, hey, listen, man, and I'm going to pick on marketing. A lot of great friends are in marketing. We work with, but marketing, if you ask someone how to grow the business, the marketing people are going to say marketing, 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 marketing. And that is, the hammer nail thing. You're saying, hey, get an advocate who's going to tell you get an advocate, hire someone who represents you. This is kind of like a sell side quality of earnings, commissioning a quality of earnings, right? Review. Get yourself an advocate, hire Talbot West, and arm yourself with knowledge. I think that's fantastic advice, and it's true. You're right; it is self-serving, but it is true, and you're also correct. A lot of SaaS companies will tell you that they are the answer for everything, even when they're manifestly not. And that's something that's the sin I try hard not to commit. But there you have it.
Well, All right, man. It sounds like Claire to be much more kind of open-ended and be part of an ecosystem rather than a defined solution set. And so I think that's probably the right direction.
Yeah. And we're, the first experience that our community is going to have with Claire is actually as data collection. Hey, what do you wish you knew? What are you trying to ask? What, that type of if you were typing a question into this box and could get an answer, what would the question be? So that we can start crowdsourcing and then use AI to sort all of these great questions to make sure that we're getting our customers, our community, exactly the types of answers they need. Hey, I hate to do this. This is a fantastic conversation. I'm looking forward to meeting you in Chicago. And maybe we can do this again after the event to have a debrief. Okay, now that we've been through the sausage grinder, what did we learn?
Sounds great, George. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, Jacob. I'm glad I met you, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of conversations as we both evolve forward.
All right, thanks so much.
Awesome, man.
Bye.
Hi, this is George. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe, like, and please take 2 seconds to leave a review. It tells the world that you like what we're doing, and it helps us understand how we can improve the show. Thank you, and see you next time.